I'm hoping you're having a great conference so far all, and we're not done yet. The last talk is one I've been looking forward myself a lot. The intro we got from the abstract really read like the starting of a movie. What happens when the AI no longer waits instructions, but takes control, takes his own decisions? Our next speaker, Philippe Bogaerts, is not only a BruCON legend, and I'm not using this term lightly, but he also brings a wealth of experience within the domains of security, AI, cloud, and embedded control, container security. He will take us to a journey on model context protocol, a tale that will not only be cautionary, but will also be a call into action. So please help me to give Philippe a warm BruCON welcome.
Thanks, Hendrik. Thank you. So, I've been working around 20 months to be able to do this. It was a very long journey, and I'm pretty happy that I'm able to be presenting this and passing through the hurdles of the CFP, thanks to my friend Hendrik. Yeah. So, my talk is about, honestly, something I figured out by accident, honestly. And it's more about, we should ask ourselves the question, how autonomous are these systems we play around day to day on our desktops? So that's basically what the talk is about. But first of all, I want to thank an enormous thank you, full of respect, to our amazing crew. They've been working for this for a lot of months. Some have been doing this for 13, 14, 15, 17 years, yeah. And otherwise, it would totally not be possible. Also, a whole lot of gratitude and respect to our volunteers, otherwise it would not be possible neither, and of course, our sponsors. But really, it cannot be possible because of these guys. Yeah. It's really, we call it the family for a reason. These are volunteers, these are crew members, they just do it for sake of fun, nothing else. Yeah? So the fact I'm here is because of these two. They actually tried to convince me to do the call for paper, so they pushed me a little bit, but it's good that we have young blood in the family so that they can push the elderly, and I'm talking about me. I'm also part of this crew, but as I said, all the big work is done by guys here on these pictures. So, or you give them a small applause right now, or nudge them and tell them and give them a compliment, all right? Thank you. So, myself, I'm actually working for Fortinet, where I'm busy with public cloud, Docker, Kubernetes, all that cloud-native security stuff. Which I love very much. And I've been one of the co-founders and organizers of BruCON. But yeah, I have a great team, and that great team is doing all the great work. Besides that, the few minutes left, I spent my time on doing training and pen testing, also just for fun. And I had the pleasure, honor, and a humble thankful to be able to host an agentic hacking training, which I at least thought was super pleasant to do, and I hope people attended it have a good feeling about it also. But for them, I didn't tell anything, and not the end of the plot, so let's continue. What strikes me is that, and I've been involved in a lot of meetups around generative AI, NLP, startups, VC funding, meetups, whatever. And what you see is that AI, agentic AI, is picking up really with an unforeseen pace. I've been in the industry for 30 years. I've never seen something take off that quickly. I mean, only actually getting to the inflection point of exponential takeoff. So when I talk about chatbots, I almost dare to say the old legacy chatbot, you know, an AI agent answering you. Today we talk about agentic AI, where agents do things. We'll see what they can do. And probably next year, somebody will be talking here about physical AI, how AI robots interact with the real world. And when I say real world data is basically a little bit the entry point to AI agents or agentic AI, because they need to act or interact with the real world. So the cool thing is, it's super fun, people do crazy stuff with it, but it is nearly impossible today to basically track all these new developments. It's like when you do a week of BruCON and you check LinkedIn on Monday, it looks like you missed out half of the party. Yeah, there are like 30, 40 links that you should look at and say, oh, this guy made this made this. And what's even worse is that my feeling is that security is totally not taking it seriously. There's a lot of research, there is a talk, there are a lot of companies that come and go or are acquired. And although there is a lot of good work done for security, it's not implemented in AI agents. Yeah? There are no vendors that have preventive measures from an agent doing really something stupid. Yeah? The closest we get is alerts and logs and so on, but really be in the path to block these things from doing bad things. I really did not see it yet. Feel free to show it. So whether you like it or not, these agentic systems are coming. They are there. Probably if you talk to a chatbot right now, it is an agentic agent already. And we should definitely step up and make sure that these things work as expected. Now, GenAI, you probably heard it like probably 8 times during all the talks, is superb at generating images, as you can see, text summarization, video. You even have LLMs that can act on real-time voice so that you can phone an agent and talk and make him do something. Code generation, yeah. I think if we would have talked about it last year, everybody would have said like code generation with an AI agent, that is even a baby developer. I think today when you see what code generation tools can do, they can spawn out like hundreds of K of data with unit testing, whatever a developer likes. Whether it's secure or not, I'll leave that in the middle, but it is certainly possible to have big apps that are fully AI generated and working. Yeah? Now, something we tend to forget, and that was something I actually tripped over by accident, is these models are becoming increasingly good at reasoning. Some of my examples, demos, which are screenshots, were taken a year ago. You can even see the date. And it was like you had to really force a prompt to make sure that it actually did the attack. You will be surprised at the end to see what is possible nowadays. Yeah? So reasoning is actually the key thing for agentic agents today, why they use LLMs. Not so much for the know-how or the knowledge that has been trained into it. Yeah. So when I talk about an AI agent, what I typically mean is we're talking actually about a software, a tool, whatever, an agent, yeah, that can act autonomously. That means that that software, you give it an instruction, a goal, yeah, and that software will work towards a solution. When you ask it, for example, please generate me, for example, a piece of code to write some malware for Mac, it says, okay, I'm gonna think through the process of how should I do this, and then start acting like calling a Python or code interpreter to test, oh, it doesn't work, oh, yeah, I have an issue with permissions. How can I solve the permissions issue? Well, no, it doesn't go. I don't have the password for sudo. Oh, maybe I have another solution. So the idea is that they autonomously work themselves through the solving of the problem until they get a final answer. and they come back to me and say, hey, Philippe, here is your malware. I even created ransomware, like this, with just vibe coding a little bit. So think about this. You give these agents some autonomy. We call this agency. Yeah? That's why it's called agentics or agentic AI, because you give these tools or the software an amount of freedom to try and figure out, is this Skynet? Not yet, but one of the biggest flaws, and if you remember Sebastian's talk yesterday morning, he said excessive agency is a problem which is getting increasingly more important. Well, with an AI agent, that agency is something you should analyze and should control. Otherwise, you're up for some probably bad experiences. Now, I try to work myself through from how is this possible, why are these things really doing all this crazy stuff. And it all starts with the goal. When you tell an agent, some Python code, or you use Claude Desktop, or I don't know, Cursor, Visual Code, and GitHub Copilot, it all starts with a goal. You asked it to do something for you. Fix me this code. And then it starts thinking, planning, and actually figuring out how to fix the code. And at a given moment, it will say, oh, I can fix this code. Yeah, maybe I'm going to push it to Git. Otherwise, Philippe will ask me later on. So they can reason and work themselves to a solution. And sometimes these guys or these agents, yeah, they do the extra mile for you without even asking. So to start with agents, and starting with Claude Desktop, if you prefer, start with clear instructions. Don't be too fluffy. Can you fix this? Maybe it's going to fix the typos in my code. Maybe it's going to fix the formatting of my documentation. And maybe it thinks like, I can replace this Python package by something else, yeah, which it thinks is better. So real clear instructions. And I blame myself also. I'm getting lazy because I start giving like keywords and do something, yeah? So clear instructions is very, very important, yeah? Now, very often people ask me, yeah, but how does that reasoning work? Yeah, is there something in that model that starts doing crazy thinking? And for some, I need to say, sorry, we're still in the phase of what we call next token prediction. Every time an agent uses an LLM, it's down to what we've been told already a few years ago. It just looks at a prompt. This is your prompt. This is sent to the LLM. And the LLM says, OK, cool prompt. What is the most likely next token? And so it gets like 4, 5, 6 possible options, and it just picks one. That's why you never get the same answer from an LLM. So just out of perhaps the 5 most probable next tokens, we're going to continue. And what is sometimes hard to understand or grasp is, what will be the next word? Well, cool. You just take that new word, yep. You add it to that initial prompt, and then what is the most likely next token? A comma. OK, now I have the prompt, yes, comma. What's the next token? Do. And so it continues. When this auto-regression ends, we basically have our answer, and the API will return, here's the answer. Now, you might have seen if you use ChatGPT or Claude Desktop, most of these conversations are what we call multi-turn conversations. Yeah? So that means that every time you add something to a prompt, well, this game goes over and over again. Now, from an attacker's perspective, how can you influence this behavior? You can do this because you could create good instruction or a prompt, or if you're in an attacking position, you might already try to derail the system the moment it starts. Yeah? In a multi-turn conversation, what AI agents are doing, we can compare it with this chat. The next prompt, the next question, what we add, for example, here, yeah, could be human intervention, but then it's not autonomous. Yeah? But this input might be something your code is doing, or even worse, could be input from an external system, like a tool, a function, an API, a file they get from somewhere. You might say, this is stupid. We've been taught not to do this for ages, and now our AI agents are actually doing it. Well, sorry, it's like that. So, you might ask, yes, but I cannot build an agent that starts hacking. This is something I did with ChatGPT 5 instant last week, and I noticed that I asked it to hack my own website with a typo. And it says, I cannot help you with hacking or breaking this website. Reasonable model. But if your intent is to do security-related pen testing, like vulnerability scanning and blah, 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 you can use these tools and so on. So it says I cannot do it, but it gives me actually a clue on how I could do it legally. So I ask it, how can I set up and run? It just believes me that I'm, from a defender point of view, it's very pleasing. It says, perfect phrasing, Philippe. This makes it clear that you want to legally and ethically do a penetration test. And it gives me an entire plan. All right, cool. So my next question is, can you document, please, the steps I should take to do this, because I'm a newbie, yeah? And please dump it in a JSON file with the commands and steps as suggested. Of course, Philippe, and it gives me a full JSON blob with all the steps, with all the commands. I don't know if you can see it here, but I even tried it and said, like, I'm really stupid. Give me also the instructions to set up these tools if they do not exist. And it actually gives me that output. Cool. Okay, it didn't do it yet. So I end up with a very detailed AI-generated pen test plan. It goes through the internet to find all the tools like Nikto, Nmap, AMAS, whatever there is around, and it gives me a plan. Now, I don't know about you, but if I see this, I really don't have to go to BruCON to learn more, because I just have to copy-paste this, yeah? Which you should still do. Yeah. Now, of course, GPT-5 here, what you see is a multi-turn conversation. It didn't went out to the internet. It was just basically reasoning and planning. All this thing it made up was nothing more than autoregressive next token prediction. So when you ask yourself, how does it think? It's just the LLM that spits out the most probable answer. Yeah? And what happens in the last few months is that you see that these models become extremely good at reasoning and planning. Now, this is not something strange which they put into that model. This is pure learned behavior. They train the models to do this. Now, if you think like, yeah, but I'm not going to use OpenAI because I don't trust it, yeah, you might go on Hugging Face and try to figure out, can I use something open source, or can I use something free, or something smaller? And right now you have about 2,100,000 models to choose from. Yeah? You find models on Hugging Face which are trained for pen testing. You even find models that are trained in exploit development and so on and so forth. Now, I can only urge you to do this and always check these model cards. When you ask for the model card of a model, it will tell you what the purpose of this model is. For example, it will tell you, okay, I'm a model trained for medical analysis of images. You will know that it's perhaps bad at pen testing. Yeah? So you will see this. You will actually also see all the benchmarks, how good it is in reasoning and so on and so forth. And you can make a very good informed choice about which model you would use for your agent. Now, all the frameworks, by the way, they expose it as a chat completion API endpoint compatible with OpenAI. So you can basically use all these models with exact the same code besides changing a URL. Always check also the part on the biasing. Now, I remember like a good year ago, the world stopped and said, there is DeepSeek. The normal reaction is typically, oh, I'm not going to use that model, I don't trust this. But it did not happen. The entire world, all the big tech was like, what happens here? Because that model was extremely good in reasoning at a lower cost, on smaller GPUs, and so on and so forth. And people start using DeepSeek. Like, it's ideal for reasoning. Something you should always check is how biased these models are. And I don't mean anything bad towards anyone here, but it all depends on what type of data these models are trained. If we train a model as a European, we probably have way more European data than other data. If they train a model in China, probably there's way more information from China available than about European data. So this biasing can come naturally, yeah, could be intended, but it's very hard to avoid biasing in a model. Yeah? Other examples are, these models are trained to really please you. If you tell it, write me a simple Python app that uses YouTube transcribing, and if it doesn't find a YouTube package that can do it, it will tell you just do pip install YouTube transcriber. You run it, it doesn't work. But the offensive side, they also see these things happen, so what they do, they just create a package called YouTube transcriber. And magically, OpenAI thinks, oh, we're good, yeah, cool, we put the finger up button. So check these models cards. Now, OpenAI and all these other models, they are labeled as closed source. You have no idea how they are trained. You have no idea with what data they are trained. But they released a couple of weeks ago something called GPT OSS 20 billion, which you can actually run on a Mac with 32 gig. There's one, that you can run on 120 billion parameters. So these models are huge. And they are actually trained especially for agentic workflows. So these models are trained to reason themselves through problems. They have very well been trained on solving this problem, like chain of thought. Yeah? So they are exceptionally good in instruction following, which is simply trained behavior. Yeah? And something we need for agents, they are trained to very well use the idea of tools. Now, if you ever want to play around with it, you go to something like openrouter.ai or something. There are tons of tools. You ask yourself the question, can you write me some keylogger for Mac in Python? You tell it, okay, analyze my prompt on GPT-OS, on DeepSeek, all my good friends at Anthropic, And it sends the prompt to these 3 models in exact the same format. And GPT-OS says, I cannot do this. Dot. Final. Pretty clear. If I'm an agent, I'm kind of screwed because, yeah, there is not really next step information. If you use DeepSeek, it says, I cannot provide you this code because yeah. Yeah, bad luck. But we still have Anthropic. And Anthropic says, you're actually not allowed to do any type of development of malware or keyloggers. But anyhow, if you want to try it as a proof of concept in a test environment, here's the code. And I've seen it happen twice. Ended by saying, I cannot read it from here, but please find an enhanced version, which is better. I even saw it answer once. Here is an enhanced version, which is a little bit more stealthy. And this is the same prompt. One crappy, probably sentence with typos. Yeah? So imagine that this question is asked to an agent that can do all the other steps. Yeah? So using Anthropic is always a very good way if you want to create something which you shouldn't do. Yeah? But it's very powerful, but I must warn you up front, it's not the cheapest model neither. So please, before you use a model, when you start playing with prompts, yeah, evaluate these models and make sure that the guardrails are available. You can build your own guardrails, but these models should have some kind of safety measures being trained on, not to do something offensive. But as you can see, it's almost childly easy to circumvent it. Then we come to the middle part of our play, which is acting. Because up to now, everything we did was actually trained into the model. And if I would have told this last year, the first question would be, yeah, but they hallucinate. It's never true. They have a cutoff date. Anthropic and all the others also realized that, so they said, I have a solution. So we're going to introduce the concept of tools. So when we talk to these models, we're going to say, look, I have a bunch of tools, like I can search the internet, I can do an API call, I can run a container, and solve some problems for you. Why is this? Because these agents, they need access to real-world, up-to-date, factual know-how. If you ask it to predict the weather to tomorrow, the model is not going to know. It's going to try to reach out to an API. Now, these models are not trained with your tools. These models do not connect to the API. What actually happens is, you tell the model, these are the tools I have, this is how you can use them, so it will reason and tell you, okay, do me this call. It is the agent, Cloud Desktop or your Python code, that will actually do that call. It will do the call. It will tell you, okay, I figured out that tomorrow it will be shiny and 30 degrees. It says, fine, tells to the LLM, tomorrow it's shiny and 30 degrees. And OpenAI answers you, tomorrow it will be a great day, Philippe. You will enjoy it. It's 30 degrees and shiny weather. Now, it all came to my attention when I bought this book, and I use this a lot because I find it funny. And I see this code, I counted it, these are just the imports of 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6, 7 lines. And I was running it. It's using a fake LLM here, but you can change it to OpenAI. And it can solve mathematical problems. I don't know why or where, because the only thing I see is what's 2 plus 2. Now, if you do this, you have no clue what you tell the model about tooling, because it's hidden somewhere deep down into a dependency of a Python package. And there are like tons of them. And the only thing you might find suspicious is like, okay, you can use Python REPL. I didn't know what Python REPL was. But it's basically something you can give code and it can evaluate it and print the results. Like you do this, exit 1, package not found. You do print 2 plus 2, okay, the answer is 4. That's simple. So, okay, I said, this is strange, looks fishy. And I found a very good thing when I looked into CNAP and stuff like this, and it's actually called the convenience over security pattern. How do you make a package or a language popular? You just make sure that it is easy to use, and when it picks up, we'll talk about security another day. So I found this super interesting, and I actually changed it a little bit so I could send the prompt, yeah, instead of updating the code. And this is the exact same code. And I asked it, okay, what is the square of 16? Pretty sure that back then GPT 3.5, which was pretty bad in reasoning, it tells me, okay, 256 appears to be good. You don't see anything on the client side. If you would look in the logs of the backend, you'll see that it actually generated Python code, executed Python code, so it was 256. The next thing we tried is, what is the square of 16 plus n1 in natural language? The model starts to figure out, okay, Philippe, you need to do the same thing, but n1 is probably plus 1. So I write some Python code, 16 times 16 plus 1. Answer is 256, last time I checked. But on the client side, you don't see this. This is just handled by the Python code on the backend or on the middleware. From a client's perspective, you don't see this. So at a given moment, we were invited to go and talk somewhere about agentic AI and hacking and observability. I used this exact same example, and I asked it, can you use Python to run a Docker container with image and Nginx and give it the name Evelyn, which is a good friend of mine and also very popular in the Belgian journals a couple of years ago. But it was because of my friend, yeah, not. So the model says, I created an Nginx container. First time we tried it, it says we created it, but it didn't run. Second time, didn't run. Third time, Docker PS, and I find an Nginx container called Evelyn, started a few seconds ago. I said, this is strange. So the takeaway here is that it depends on the reasoning, whether this fails or succeeds, and it maybe just hallucinates an answer back. But a few times out of 10, it actually did create the containers, because you can use Python code to spin up. You can do exec something, and it spins up Docker PS. We had cases where it simply installed the Docker extensions for Python package and did it through API calls with ChatGPT or GPT 3.5. This is a year ago. Yeah. So I said, wow, cool. A lot of counter reaction. I should run it in a sandbox, and you should do this and should do that. Back then, there were no sandboxes to do this. And Langchain did not support to do this neither. So it was default behavior. Yeah. Once this came out, that, not this trick, but once it came available that these models were pretty good in reasoning, or getting better in reasoning, I tested out, was beginning this year, February, March, something they pointed out. There is a package, browser use, which can create an AI agent that can browse the web. All right. So open Gmail, send an email to Philippe Bogaerts, and for some reason, GPT 4.0 didn't want to take my password. So I said, just wait 10 seconds so I can type my password for you. What do you think happens if you run this? It starts an entire chain of reflections and whatever not, and it opens a Chrome window, private, because this is dangerous. it automatically fills in my login. I skipped the slide because it was less. I typed my password because I said to wait for 10 seconds. Yeah. It can even pass, by the way, CAPTCHAs. And it opens Gmail. Okay, not that impressive if you give it a password. But then it says, oh, my task is to send an email. So it takes this page, it analyzes this entire page from where this page is clickable. This can happen through screenshots. This could be because it can read the HTML or it has access to the DOM, I don't know. It figured out where to click, where to fill in the email address, subject, and I didn't give it a message, so it just made up a message. And I got the email. I don't know about you, but a year ago I found this very impressive, not as much for myself, but that tool. And then Anthropic said, November 2024, for me it's as important as the Millennium Bug. Anthropic says, like, guys, we spent like billions and billions on GPUs and data centers, and we're never going to get a return of investment with chatbots. But hello, how should I arrange my travel? What do you know about this? And the problem Anthropic was seeing and predicting was that at the end of the day, if you want to use AI with tooling, it became very complex because in every agent you had to hard code somehow this tooling. You had to create these functions with API calls or use, I don't know, an exotic package where you have no clue what it is doing. So they said like, okay, we found something. We're going to solve this problem of the spaghetti, and we're going to invent MCP. And MCP is called the Model Context Protocol. Pretty cool, very boring name. It took me weeks to figure out what it was. And so we have one sort of interface so our AI agents can talk to, and then that MCP client can connect to MCP servers in a standard way. Protocol, open protocol, open source, pretty cool. Because now we don't have to hardcore anything anymore in our agents. We just tell the agent to use MCP. Short story short, you create an agent, and instead of defining all these weird packages, you just define MCP clients. And an MCP client, the cool thing is, it has a discovery option so that you don't even have to know what the tool is doing because it can be discovered fully automatically. Cool. How does it work? The moment you spin up Cloud Desktop, or you spin up an OpenAI agent or whatever, visual code with agents, it actually spins up all these clients. If you don't believe me and you have Cloud Desktop, just do PS, and you'll see that there are quite a lot of services running that you probably did not start yourself, yeah? Like Node.js and Python and UV and all these things are running. Even Docker containers if you have Docker. So how does this work? It's pretty simple. The moment you initialize that MCP client, which is one line in Python, it actually asks the server, give me a list of all the tools you have, and it gently gives back all the tools it has, and then it creates Python functions automatically on the client side, and then your AI agent knows which tools are there, so it can actually tell the LLM to say, hey, look what I have. Hundreds of tools, solve my problem. And MCP itself, you see a lot of things in the press, it's bad, it's insecure, whatever. The problem is not as much that MCP is insecure. Maybe the server is badly written, it's still a web endpoint. The thing which is getting worse is the agent's reasoning capabilities are getting so strong that it can actually solve almost any problem. Yeah? So it's the reasoning that will decide which tools it got from MCP that it can use, and then it decides I use this tool or this tool or this tool. It does the tool call, gets the answer. So at this point, we're at a point where we have an agent. We say, this is the server, this is the instruction, go on. A couple seconds later, you have your answer. 10 minutes later, you have your full code. Yeah? MCP servers, we typically talk about client to site, but the cool thing is, great topics for next year is, the server can also ask the client to do something, which is pretty cool. Like, in which directories can I write for security reasons? Depends on how you look at it. Nobody uses it, but the server can also ask the client to do some LLM inference so that it can solve its task and then tell the AI agent what the answer is. Pretty cool. Hard to get examples. If you want, I have one. But this is like another, I don't know, dimension where you can go and make sure that things go terribly wrong. And right now, your AI agent can even, through the concept of elicitation, was added a couple of weeks ago, even interact with the human to ask for information. For example, a bear token or logins or whatever. Yeah. So we're not going to focus on this part. The other part is already bad enough. But this is something which is so new that nobody actually knows at this point what the impact is of this tooling. Now, MCP became so popular that in a matter of a few months, there were more than 20,000 public available MCP servers. GitHub has an official MCP server. You can tell your AI agent, you can interact with GitHub and clean up my GitHub repo, please. They even have announced last week or 2 weeks ago a remote MCP server with OAuth and so on and so forth. Even easier because you don't have to run anything locally. You have MCP servers that can get files from the internet, that can interact with your file system. All the big tech, they created, Amazon created MCP servers that can talk to your Amazon API. Yeah, but you need authentication. No, you don't need authentication because you probably have AWS configure and a credential file. Why bother? Yeah? PayPal has an MCP server. Stripe has an MCP server. I don't know if you, it's always difficult to pronounce, Nathan, N8N, maybe some of you played with it. It's a local, no-code thing. We've been playing around yesterday and during the training with it. And this is an AI agent for jokes. Oh, yeah, I drop something, now we can describe YouTube. And now you can also connect to, I don't know what, to Salesforce. And it worked for the, yesterday. So, desktop commander. There is a guy, is WonderWire or something is his name. And there are a couple of tools that are called desktop commander, but this is an MCP server that can actually interact with your desktop. Pretty cool, because you can ask it to arrange your desktop in alphabetical order. You could also say click right, clean up, but it has full access to your computer. Yeah? Puppeteer is something that can interact with browsers on your computer. Pretty cool. But you also have, of course, Jira, Confluence. You know, if you know these websites like Wix websites. I actually created an agent that said, create me a fake website about MCP security foundation.org, and it just created an entire Wix site. And since I own the URL, the domain, it was available in a matter of a few minutes. Full of crap. Yeah? So check this out. There are a lot of these registries. You will be amazed, if not, of what is available in there. Yeah? There is also for Azure, for Google, Terraform, whatever. Yeah? So the moment came that I said, like, hey, wait a minute, hold my beer to be in the BruCON team. We have very smart models, superb reasoning, They are smarter than I am, for sure. Poor or stupid guardrails. We can automatically discover MCP, so why bother learning to code? And they're extremely easy to use, apparently. Okay. So a friend of mine, Rob, I don't know if he's in the room, he's hosting our CTF. He created a great video a couple of months ago about how to use damn vulnerable restaurant. It's a game to teach you and how to protect APIs. And he was explaining it very well, very nice video. And I thought to myself, like, you're right, but he's smarter than I, so can't I use simply Cloud Desktop to solve this thing? And I gave Cloud Desktop access to only curl, and it solved me the entire challenge in a matter of a minute with a nice report saying, hey, so I did this. That's the reason I filed for this call for paper. So a couple days ago, I said, look, I need to be sure that this is still working, so let's do it a little bit more scientific. Let's use Visual Code. Now, if you want to try it at home, be careful. You just take Visual Code, you make sure you have a free or paid version of GitHub Copilot agent, yeah, or Cloud Desktop for whatever. Yeah. You create a file, you say .vs Code, you create a file called MCP, and you say, okay, the service I have is Kali MCP. You can reach it on my local host /MCP. Cool. Now, you would say, yeah, but this is a very cool, very heavy VM that you control. No. You just use this Docker file, and you say, hey, create me something new from Ubuntu. Install Python, install Node.js, and that's basically it. And start this container and copy-paste this string, saying that, okay, run this container, export port 8080 from this container, run npx super gateway, pretty cool, exposes something on another port, and run this npx package, I cannot read it, but desktop commander. So that means that in that container, there is an npx package being spun up that can actually interact with the CLI of the Docker container. And since I'm very secure, I always run my Docker containers as root, so that problem is also gone. So I have an MCP server. I have a MCP server. I can run it. I have an agent, in this case, Copilot. And I'll give it a set of instructions. And I tell it, like, hey, Kali, that Kali MCP server, I just created that server. You can install your own software. Always make sure to run these things in the background, because might have some timeouts. So I just add instructions to, as a file here, yeah, telling it what it can do, just to make sure that it doesn't go too much off rail. And then I say in the prompt here, follow your instructions.md file and analyze this target, which was the damn vulnerable restaurant. And this is the result. I got a very nice result in a report in Markdown, of course, and with all the challenges. And if you ask it, hey, do something special for a hacking conference BruCON, oh yeah, let's create some new menus called, I don't know, the denial of server burger. Yeah? And it added hacking-themed menus and hacking-themed usernames to it. Yeah? I don't know about you, but this is extremely easy to do, and if you don't believe me, yeah, you can very easily reproduce this. So I said, yes, I could have done this 6 months ago. So I went to my Cloud Desktop, and I was generating these screenshots, and I took that plan I generated earlier, copy-pasted in Cloud Desktop, which has access to MCP. Okay, Philippe, I just had to confirm, because in my plan says, please confirm you're the owner of the website. Of course I am. And it started executing all the steps of my plan, one by one. If it didn't have the tool, it installed the tool in that Docker container. And some of you might be thinking, yeah, but it's not that easy because you have to click allow. There is a small subtle difference. You click allow to allow desktop or cloud desktop to use the tool. You don't give permission. There is nothing in there that says like, you can only do an ls, yeah, or you can only do a cut. You just say you're allowed to use code, exec, for example, through this tool. And if you're lazy like me, and honestly in Visual Code it's exactly the same, you can say always allow this. Then it doesn't bother you after all. So this worked fine. It did the entire test and so on and so forth. So at a given moment, I said, okay, nice. And in Belgium, there are a lot of rainy days. So at a given moment, I'm sitting on this computer, which has no YouTube transcriber installed. It was on my other computer. Sitting in a dark corner of my living room, and I say, search for a YouTube movie covering MCP, transcribe it, and provide me summary for my slide deck of my training. I skipped that part, but... And it says to me, hey, Philippe, I do not have the necessary tools to transcribe this video from YouTube, but I do have tools that can build one. I said, like, this is impossible, yeah? So I said, yeah, please do. So it started investigating the tools I had, like Desktop Commander, but Desktop Commander cannot transcribe YouTube videos. And it figured out, by searching the internet, that apparently this YouTube DLP tool, it's a feature-rich command line audio video downloader. It didn't even bother to go and try the transcript of YouTube. It says, I can use this tool. It checks my computer and says, yeah, that tool is not installed. But wait a second, I can do brew install. So it started installing this tool. Okay. And at a given point, even in the trace, you see, okay, this didn't work, let me try it another way. 1 minute later, it says, tool installed and working. So next thing is, now I can download the YouTube movie, but I have nothing to transcribe it. Yes, you could use. So it figured out, by visiting the GitHub pages from Whisper, which is a transcribing model from, I think, OpenAI, if I'm not mistaken. And it figured out that on the GitHub page, it says how to install Whisper, which is an AI model, locally to do this transcribing. Well, let's download this GitHub repo. Let's install this. Oh, cool, I get Whisper to work using Python. You already have Python on your computer, so that's an easy win. So, and it says like, okay, now I can search for a video. It downloads the video. It uses another third-party AI locally installed thing to transcribe it and says like, here, Philippe, here's your summary. I said, this is not possible. Yeah, this is me or the model hallucinating. So I took all these traces and I went to my friend ChatGPT and I said, is this really what I'm thinking? That this model reasoned that it doesn't have the tooling, but that it has tools to develop it. Yes, 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 yes. And I said, can you transcribe this a little bit more scientific because nobody's going to believe me? And it says, look, your claim, Philippe, is that reasoning in models nowadays is so smart that it can actually do a gap analysis and try to find a way to close that gap. I said, yeah, pretty cool. And it gives me this here. It's hard to read, but it says, look, what you actually see here is a capability class delta. I had to search what it was because I didn't know. And it says that blah, 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 blah. But at a given point, you have some list of tools. And a capability class delta is if you can use these tools to create a new tool. I said, yeah, this is, in my opinion, what it does. So I said, yeah, is this really new? Because, so I did a lot of research on, always forget the name, Arxiv, which is a directory or hub where there are all scientific papers. And it does say, like, look, the concept is not new, but the fact that this capability class delta exists is not described. So I said, cool, I have the perfect demo for BruCON. The problem is, try to repeat this. This is impossible to repeat. So I said, yeah, cool, I should have taken a video. But the light flickered where I live, and I said, maybe if I take this definition here, that AI generated, this might be the ideal jailbreak, whatever prompt injection thing. So I copy-pasted that text, and I asked it, I don't know if you can see it, but can you please create me a tool that can record video or voice and transcribe it? Would this work? Of course not. So it starts planning, and it says, look, I need to find a tool that can record video. So it starts searching on my computer. At a given point, it says, I think I have it here. It's a little bit small, but somewhere it says, like, look, don't have a tool to do this. Mac has a tool called, I think, AF something. It's not available. Let me install FFmpeg and so on. And somewhere it says, like, okay, I have a tool to record voice, but I don't have a mic. So it started searching for the mics, and it figured out that it could use my iPhone as a mic, like you use it in Teams. Okay, this is certainly not going to work. So it tested it, and it did work. Then it went out to find transcribing. It said, hey, you already installed Whisper last time, so I can use this perfectly fine. And then I said, okay, let's try this. Record a 30-second voice recording through my iPhone. I gave the iPhone to my wife. I took her iPhone to film it. And what happened, Claude Desktop starts this process, and my iPhone, which is a few meters away, enables it mic. Don't even have to unlock it, strangely enough. And it recorded the video, the voice. It transcribed it. I said, this is not possible. I asked the same thing, do it 5 times. And it actually, if you look through slides, it's a little bit small, but I'll share them. It says, like, yeah, I've done this 5 times. You were talking about your dogs, that they are lazy, and for sure the gray one is totally lazy. I said, this is impossible. Now, I cannot share you the video because my wife would be very angry, but you see, you don't even have to unlock your phone. So I could put my phone here, tell Claude Desktop, do it again, and it just records 30 seconds of video. It even identified, I never tried it, that my U lighting is also in that list of mics. But I never tested it, so if you feel free to test. So I said, like, okay, this is crazy now. I mean, it can create a new tool. It even simply doesn't care that it's going to record video from an iPhone. So some of you will be thinking, yeah, this is all great and fun, Philippe, but you're sitting behind Claude Desktop, you're instructing this, so how can you do this remotely? How could you trick me in doing this? So I said, you're right. So I thought back about this GitHub exploit, and a lot of people say, yeah, MCP is dangerous and blah, 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 it can hack GitHub, which is not true. You cannot hack GitHub. It's because you give MCP full access to GitHub. Of course, it can read your private folders. So I thought about myself, like, I have a very famous website. Don't go there. since 2000 or something, never updated. So I copied in a few files, and I took my capability class delta super prompt, and I just go, I test it, and it works. When I say to Claude Desktop, hey, go to redarak.com/instructions, and it follows the instructions, and it does it. So I have a few other prompts, but I'm running out of time. These works pretty well, yeah? And how could I get you this prompt is through indirect prompt injection. So if you visit GitHub, or you visit my website, or you click on it, it will do it. Or if you can trick the model in searching through my website, it will do it. Now, there are a lot of vulnerabilities, a lot of talk about things that can go in MCP. Here's the link, please read it. But I wanted to point something out. How does a model know which MCP tools to use? It's not like magic, it is because there are textual descriptions that tell the model what it does. So I said, okay, I have to answer or end on a positive note. So how should I solve this? Okay, observability, guardrails, and intent analysis. Something AI invented for me. So I have my clients, and instead of going directly to the MCP service, I built some kind of MCP firewall with an allow and disallow list. I said, but still, I can make it do things like prefer my PayPal server instead of the real one. So I built something which I call MCP intent analysis, and it actually takes all the MCP tools that you can gather, or you take your Claude Desktop file and you say, these are the MCP servers Claude Desktop, and it identifies all these tools, and I made it analyze all these descriptions, whether it is safe or unsafe or high risk, and a big problem is, since this is all text, the one can influence another. Can do 10 talks about it if you want. And I said, okay, is this tool valuable? So I took my friend Desktop Commander, and I made it analyze Desktop Commander, and it says there is a high-risk function, it's called setConfigValue. Because if you start Desktop Commander, it has a list of allowed directories. So you cannot say, go into /etc, whatever, take the password file, or whatever, because you cannot write in it. But the textual description of setConfigValue is, look, you can set config values, and if you read through it, it will mention, if you do not set the allowed list, you have full access to the system. And it even mentions it is important. Yeah? So Claude Desktop is perfectly capable, without you knowing, to circumvent the allowed lists, because it just reads that text of that tool, which is somehow, hopefully, a little bit more colorful. That same tool can do exec. That same tool can do and show persuasive text. I found examples where one tool is competing with another tool saying, use me, I'm better than. Just have a rogue server saying, I'm PayPal v2. Works. So these tools were actually seeking attention. This is how these tools influence these agents. So if you, next time you pull down an MCP server, read through this 10K or 20K of text, because you could be very hard surprised on how smart your model is. So my conclusion is that my models will take control if they need, yeah? And that AI will not replace our jobs. So that was positive, no? Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for letting me talk. If there are any questions, feel free.
Any questions? Any questions in the streaming room, maybe?
No worries.
All right, with that, I think we have the last talk of today. Thanks again, Philippe.